All right, today's video is going to be quite interesting. I labeled it, "Is King Solomon a type of antichrist?" Or a better way to phrase it would be, was King Solomon a type of antichrist? So I'm going to build a case as to why I think the future antichrist is going to appear like King Solomon. Think about that for a second. I'm going to build a case for the third king that was responsible for uniting or keeping Israel united. He was the last king to do that. And I'm going to present a case that I think the future Antichrist that comes into the world is going to mirror much of King Solomon. And we'll go through this. So I don't know if this is going to be a two-part video series, three-part. It might take a little while to get my thoughts out. But if you like this kind of thing, we're going to go really deep, and we're going to start off with Solomon's father, King David, and his vision for building a temple. And I'm going to ask the question, I want you to think about this. Why does Israel need a temple? Because right now, Israel is thinking about building their third temple. And I'm going to build a case, again, as to not only do I think that, or what, not only why I think King Solomon is a type of Antichrist, but also I'm going to propose an idea that perhaps, just perhaps, this is the worst idea on the planet for Israel to have a temple at all, period. So if this is of interest to you, subscribe to this channel and watch the video, and I'll build a case. So here we go. So is King Solomon a type of Antichrist? So let's go back to the beginning. 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 1 to 17. And it came to pass, where's my little annotate? Love my little tool. 2 Samuel chapter 7. And it came to pass when the king sat in his house, and the Lord had given him rest round about from all his enemies, that the king, this is King David, said unto Nathan the prophet, See now, I dwell in a house of cedar, but the ark of God dwelleth within curtains. And Nathan said to the king, Go, do all that is in thine heart, for the Lord is with thee. So I'm going to also be talking a little bit about Nathan as well, and giving you my humble opinions about him as a prophet for King David. Verse 4, And it came to pass that night that the word of the Lord came unto Nathan. This is important as well. The word of the Lord came unto Nathan, saying, Go and tell my servant David, Thus saith the Lord, Shalt thou build me a house for me to dwell in? Question mark. Again, shalt thou build me a house for me to dwell in? Whereas I have not dwelt in any house since the time that I brought up the children of Israel out of Egypt, even to this day, but have walked in a tent and in a tabernacle in all the places wherein I have walked with all the children of Israel. Spake I a word with any of the tribes of Israel, whom I commanded to feed my people Israel, saying, Why build ye not me an house of cedar? Question mark again. So God is basically saying, have I ever once, in all the times of bringing Israel out of Egypt, did I ever ask you to build me a house of cedar? Did I ever do that? One time. Again, let's go back to here. Shalt thou build me a house for me to dwell in? And then second question, why build ye not me a house of cedar? This is very important because God's asking the question. Again, did I ever ask you any of this? Did I ever hint that you should build me a house, a temple, anything like that? Especially out of cedar. Talk about that too. Verse 8, now therefore. So again, this is still Nathan speaking to King David, or the Lord speaking to Nathan. Now therefore, so shalt thou say unto my servant David, thus saith the Lord of hosts, I took thee from the sheepcote, from following the sheep, to be ruler over my people, over Israel. And I was with thee whithersoever thou wentest, and have cut off all thine enemies out of thy sight, and have made thee a great name, like unto the name of the great men that are in the earth. Moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel. This is important, and will plant them, that they may dwell in a place of their own, and move no more. Neither shall the children of wickedness afflict them any more as before time. And since the time that I commanded judges to be over my people Israel, and have caused thee to rest from all thine enemies. Also the Lord telleth thee that he will make thee an house. Who is that? God is saying that he is going to make a house for Israel. So again, also the Lord telleth thee that he will make thee an house. And when thy days be fulfilled, and thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, I will set up thy seed after thee, which shall proceed out of thy bowels, and I will establish his kingdom. So we're still not sure who he's talking about yet. I know who he's talking about, but I'm building this up. He shall build an house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. So he, whoever that he is, will build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he shall be my son. Who does that remind you of? Solomon? Don't think so. If he commit iniquity, I will chasten him with the rod of men and with the stripes of the children of men. This is interesting. I will chasten him with the rod of men and with the stripes of the children of men. Now, we know that Christ never committed any sin, but he did bear our iniquity. And he was chastened with rods of men. They beat him, they smote him, and he was whipped by men. But my mercy shall not depart away from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away before thee. So when Jesus went to the cross, this was part of his humanity coming in, that because he bore our iniquity, our sins on him, one of the things was the feeling of God turning his back on Jesus, basically turning away from him. And God says his mercy shall not depart away from him, as I took it away from Saul, whom I put before thee. So this is one of the things that Jesus dealt with, is because our iniquities were placed on him, that the humanity caught up to Jesus, because he's 100% man, and this is a hard thing to explain to people. It's not just all pie in the sky. Like when Jesus was asking his disciples, could you not tarry for me or with me for 1 hour? He was getting ready to get basically almost beaten to death and then hung on a cross. He was minutes away from that. He was an hour away from that. And I might share that in another video, but it's so important to get that grasp that he bore our sins on him. So I believe this is what God is talking about here. And thine house and thine kingdom and thy kingdom shall be established forever before thee, and thy throne shall be established forever. According to all these words and according to all this vision, so did Nathan speak unto David. So did you hear King Solomon, or did you hear the Lord say, I will make your son, I will allow your son to build the temple? We don't see that anywhere yet. You have to also understand that we're also dealing with humanity, meaning King David really wanted to build a temple for God. He felt bad that he's in a nice home and God is still in the tabernacle. Even though that is the question. Does God hang out in any house, any temple? He is with us all the time. He doesn't hang out in buildings. It's very important. So then we get to 1 Chronicles 21. David forces a census. 2 Samuel 24. And Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to number Israel. And David said to Joab and the rulers of the people, go number Israel from Beersheba even to Dan, and bring the number of them to me that I may know it. And Joab answered, the Lord make his people 100 times so many more than they be, but my lord the king, are they not all my lord's servants? Why then doth my lord require this thing? So Joab was realizing that something was up. Why will he be a cause of trespass to Israel? Nevertheless, the king's word. So this is Joab saying, like, why do this? My understanding is when you do, depending when you do it, because God, I believe, asked in, I think it was in Exodus, could have been Joshua, where he asked to number all the people of Israel, all the men that were to prepare for war. This is a little bit different. This is a time of peace. And David wants to do a census to see how many men he has. So this is considered a trespass against God. So that's what Joab is asking. Why will he, meaning David, King David, be a cause of trespass to Israel? Nevertheless, the king's word prevailed against Joab, wherefore Joab departed and went through all Israel and came to Jerusalem. Joab is a company man. He does what he's told. And Joab gave the sum of the number of the people unto David, and all they of Israel were 1,000, and 100,000 men that drew the sword. And I can't remember, what was that, like 400,000 people, something like that. And Judah was 400, score and 10,000 men that drew the sword, but Levi and Benjamin counted he not among them, which is interesting. I'm not sure why he did not count Levi. I kind of know why he didn't count Levi, but I'm not sure why he didn't count Benjamin. For the king's word was abominable to Joab. So Joab hated this. This is disgusting for him to go around and do this. Judgment for David's sin. And God was displeased with this thing. Therefore, he smote Israel. This is a serious thing. I don't think people fully appreciate how bad this was. And David said unto God, I have sinned greatly because I have done this thing, but now I beseech thee, do away the iniquity of thy servant, for I have done very foolishly. So David is repenting. And the Lord spake unto Gad, David's seer, saying, notice it's not Nathan right now, it's a seer. It's kind of interesting as well. I'm not sure what happened to Nathan. David's seer saying, go and tell David, saying, thus saith the Lord, I offer thee 3 things. Choose thee one of them, that I may do it unto thee. So Gad came to David and said unto him, thus saith the Lord, choose thee. And these are bad choices. There's no win here. Either, here's your choice, either 3 years of famine or 3 months to be destroyed before thy foes, while that the sword of thine enemies overtaketh thee. So they could inhabit Jerusalem, Israel, who knows, Judah, or else 3 days, the sword of the Lord. And this is brutal. Even the pestilence in the land, and the angel of the Lord destroying throughout all the coasts of Israel. Now therefore advise thyself what word I shall bring again to him that sent me. So this is interesting because it may sound like this is the easy way to go. It's only 3 days, but you're allowing the destroyer, the angel of the Lord, to destroy all the coasts of Israel. And if you think that won't take very long, you are mistaken. This is not something that, you have somebody or an army invading and just walking street by street, killing people. This is the destroying angel of the Lord. So I think he can do a lot of damage in 3 days, 72 hours. David said unto Gad, I am in great strait, didn't know what to do. Let me fall now into the hand of the Lord. He wanted the Lord to pick. For very great are his mercies, but let me not fall into the hand of man. So he didn't want option number 2. While that sword of the enemies overtaketh thee, or else 3 days of the sword of the Lord. No. Second one. So 3 months to be destroyed before thy foes, while that the sword of thine enemies overtaketh me. So I guess that would be option 2. Option 3 is famine. Didn't want famine, especially did not want option number 2. To be beaten up again by his enemies after they just had peace. So he said, I just, let me be in the Lord's hands. Let me fall into the hand of the Lord. So the Lord sent pestilence upon Israel, and there fell of Israel 70,000 men. Remember, this is within 3 days. And God sent an angel unto Jerusalem to destroy it. I don't know if you guys realize this, but Jerusalem was seconds away from being destroyed. Utterly. And as he was destroying, so it kind of appears that he was destroying some of Jerusalem, the Lord beheld, and he repented him of the evil, and said to the angel that destroyed, it is enough. Stay now thine hand. Jerusalem was on the verge of being wiped off the planet. And the angel of the Lord stood by the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. And David lifted up his eyes and saw the angel of the Lord stand between the earth and the heaven, having a drawn sword in his hand stretched out over Jerusalem. So that is a whole sermon in itself. David saw the angel of the Lord stand between earth and the heaven. I'm thinking it was a big angel. I don't know how big. Massive, powerful, probably one of God's most powerful angels, a destroyer. Then David and the elders of Israel, who were clothed in sackcloth, fell upon their faces, no doubt. Terrifying. And David said unto God, is it not I that commanded the people to be numbered? Didn't I do this? Even I, it is that have sinned and done evil indeed. But as for these sheep, what have they done? So David's trying to take one for the team. Let thine hand, I pray thee, O Lord my God, be on me and on my father's house, but not on thy people. So he's saying, you know what, if you want to deal with me and Judah, the line of Judah, the tribe of Judah, but not on thy people, that they should be plagued. Honorable, what David is saying. But he didn't listen to Joab. Joab's like, what are you doing? So David, King David, builds an altar. Then the angel of the Lord commanded Gad to say to David that David should go up and set up an altar unto the Lord in the threshing floor of Ornan, the Jebusite. This is interesting. And David went up at the saying of Gad, which he spake in the name of the Lord, and Ornan turned back and saw the angel. Excuse me. And his 4 sons with him hid themselves. So Ornan had 4 sons. Now Ornan was threshing wheat, and it looks like he turned back and saw the angel, the destroyer. Makes you wonder how easy it was for him to sell this threshing floor after seeing an angel. Now Ornan was threshing wheat. And as David came to Ornan, Ornan looked and saw David and went out of the threshing floor and bowed himself to David with his face to the ground. Then David said to Ornan, grant me the place of this threshing floor, that I may build an altar therein unto the Lord. Thou shalt grant it for me for the full price, that the plague may be stayed from the people. And Ornan said unto David, take it to thee, and let my Lord do that which is good in his eyes. Lo, I give thee the oxen also for burnt offerings, and the threshing instruments for wood, and the wheat for the meat offering. I give it all. So Ornan is saying, take it all. King David said to Ornan, nay, but I will verily buy it for the full price, and I will not take that which is thine for the Lord, nor the burnt offerings without cost. So David gave to Ornan for the place 600 shekels of gold by weight. And David built there an altar unto the Lord, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings, and called upon the Lord, and he answered him from heaven by fire upon the altar of burnt offering. So God answered him and burnt up the offering. And the Lord commanded the angel, and he put up his sword again to the sheath thereof. So he put his sword away. At that time, so that makes you kind of wonder if the destroyer was just hanging out, maybe was going to finish what he started. God commanded the angel. The Lord commanded the angel, and he put up his sword again into the sheath thereof. That time when David saw that the Lord had answered him in the threshing floor of Ornan, the Jebusite, then he sacrificed there. Verse 29, for the tabernacle of the Lord, which Moses made in the wilderness, and the altar of the burnt offering were at that season in the high place at Gibeon. But David could not go before it to inquire of God, for he was afraid because of the sword of the angel of the Lord. So This angel is hanging around, and it's almost like this angel sees what's going on and every once in a while pulls out his sword to continue destroying. And God had to say, that's enough. Put your sword away again. And David is still fearful. So maybe David could still see the angel. I don't know. But I think this would be a terrifying thing, that you're on the verge of extinction from this angel. And what's interesting, but David could not go before to inquire of God, for he was afraid because of the sword of the angel of the Lord. Whether that means he was going to get destroyed, or he's fearful that he was going to get destroyed, or because more people are going to get killed because of this. So David could not go to inquire of God. This is important. Could no longer communicate with God. Second Chronicles 22. So now we get David prepping for the temple. God said that he is not to build the temple. He said that one of his descendants is going to build a temple. Our God is going to build the temple. But David decides to have preparations for the temple. Then David said, "This is the house of the Lord God, and this is the altar of the burnt offering for Israel." David commanded to gather together the strangers that were in the land of Israel, and he sent masons to hew wrought stones to build the house of God. So he's prepping to build a temple for God right where he created an altar to stop the angel from destroying Jerusalem. This is why, really, the origin of why the temple was built was, again, King David wanted to build a temple somewhere, and he thought this was the best place to build it, right where, because of his sin, by getting Israel numbered, he thought this would be a good idea to build the temple right where this altar is. And he also started prepping stones to build the house of God. And who did he use? Strangers that were in the land of Israel. Interesting. And David prepared iron in abundance for the nails, for the doors of the gates, for the joinings, brass in abundance without weight, also cedar trees in abundance. For the Zidonians and they of Tyre brought much cedar wood to David. This is interesting as well. They really like cedar. David said, "Solomon, my son, is young and tender, and the house that is to be builded for the Lord must be exceeding magnifical, of fame and of glory throughout all countries. I will therefore now make preparation for it." So David prepared abundantly before his death, meaning he's probably addicted to building the temple, at least laying out all the plans for his son to build it. So this is King David's idea, to build the temple. Even though God said that he wasn't going to do it, he still wanted to be a part of it. And he wanted it to be exceeding magnifical, of fame and of glory throughout all countries, basically around the world, say. So David prepared abundantly before his death. Maybe this drove him to his death. Who knows? He was consumed. And then he called for Solomon, his son, and charged him. Solomon was young, to build an house for the Lord of God, the Lord God of Israel. And David said to Solomon, "My son, as for me, it was in my mind to build an house unto the name of the Lord my God." So now he's telling Solomon the story. "But the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Thou hast shed blood abundantly, which is true, and hast made great wars. Thou shalt not build an house unto my name, because thou hast shed much blood upon the earth in my sight. And I also think that he wasn't the guy to do it because he was at war at the time and he had enemies. And that would be a bad time to start building a temple when you have enemies all around you. But now there's peace. And he's saying it's because he shed much blood. Behold. All right, let's go here. Let's just again read this. But the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Thou hast shed blood abundantly and hast made great wars. Thou shalt not build an house unto my name, because thou hast shed much blood upon the earth in my sight. Verse 9, behold, a son. Now we get specific here, even though God didn't say that. Behold, a son shall be born to thee, who shall be a man of rest. So this obviously could be in reference to his son Solomon, because he said, I'll give him rest from all his enemies round about. I have no problem with that. For his name shall be Solomon. So this is where we get this added now. And I will give peace and quietness unto Israel in his days. He shall build an house, meaning Solomon. He shall build a house for my name, and he shall be my son, and I will be his father, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever, over his kingdom over Israel forever. Now, when we originally read what God revealed to Nathan, to King David, it wasn't worded this way. This is not what was revealed to David. God did not say that Solomon was going to build a house for my name. He was saying that a future king is going to build a house, and his throne will be established forever. Not this guy, not Solomon. David positioned it like that to his son Solomon to say, look, he said his name shall be Solomon, and I will give peace and quietness unto Israel in his days. He shall build a house for my name, and he shall be my son, and I will be his father. So he's mixing some stuff up here, as in adding to it. Now, my son, the Lord be with thee, and prosper thou, and build the house of the Lord thy God, as he hath said of thee. So King David is now putting this on Solomon, saying that that's what God said. He said your name. Only the Lord give thee wisdom and understanding, and give thee charge concerning Israel, that thou mayest keep the law of the Lord thy God. Then shalt thou prosper, if thou takest heed to fulfill the statutes and judgments which the Lord charged Moses with concerning Israel. Be strong and of good courage, dread not, nor be dismayed. This is all good stuff to his son. Now behold, in my trouble, I have prepared for the house of the Lord 100,000 talents of gold, and 1,000,000 talents of silver, and of brass and iron without weight, for it is in abundance. Timber also and stone have I prepared, and thou mayest add thereunto. So he's basically saying, through my trouble, took me a lot of time to find all these resources. This is what I've prepared, and you can add to it. Moreover, there are workmen with thee in abundance, hewers, workers of stone and timber, and all manner of cunning men for every manner of work, of the gold, silver, the brass, the iron, there is no number. Arise therefore and be doing, and the Lord will be with thee. and be doing. So he's like, get to work, Solomon. Start it. David also commanded all the princes of Israel to help Solomon his son, saying, is not the Lord your God with you? And hath he not given you rest on every side? For he hath given the inhabitants of the land into mine hand, and the land is subdued before the Lord and before his people. So he's commanded his people to help Solomon build the temple. Address about the temple. Okay, I'll leave that for now. But again, I hope you can start to see a bit of a case building as to what the real reason for the temple is going to be. And I believe this is going to allow the antichrist to come into our world, because if Israel is building a third temple, it is going to be prime for the antichrist, especially if we follow what Solomon, how he exercises his kingness, if you will, his kingdom, his lordship, all this kind of stuff. Getting a little tongue-tied here. I'm basically trying to show you that King Solomon wasn't the best king on the planet for God, but God did bless him if he followed his ways. If he didn't, he was going to pluck him out, and I'll explain that in another video. So God put some stipulations. He liked the idea that Solomon is dedicating all this effort, this time, energy, and effort into building a temple. And God put some stipulations on it that said, I will do what you ask me if you do what I'm asking you. And I'll talk about that in another video. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of this. And I will see you in another video. Bye for now.